Ryan Grant, what a pleasure, man. We have met once, I think, live that I recall, maybe more than that, and we've had a chance to share a few phone calls. But I am just so impressed with what you're doing in Orange County and the videos that I've seen you do with Dave Savage on Mortgage Coach, and just kind of talking about your passion. Before we started recording, I referred to it as a burden. I think it's a cool way to look at it. Like, you seem to have a burden around this idea of home ownership and doing it the right way, and not just kind of blindly moving down this path towards the largest debt that most people have. And so I'm really excited to talk to you today. And so, just coming back to the bullseye for this particular interview, right? We're going to be about 30 minutes into this, all said and done. And what I want to know is, when you think of all in Ryan Grant's life, let me just start there. Like, is there any place in your life where you say, "Oh yeah, dude, I'm all in"? Let me give you an example of that. Is there some place that comes to mind?
I've always been that way with my family. That was something
Nice.
that's been really important to me since day one. Is they come first, and we kind of build everything around that. So
Very
work
cool.
and all the other stuff, and my fun activities, all that stuff kind of is built around my family life.
Yeah. So you say that casually, and yet, like last week, I was speaking at an event, and there was a little Q&A section afterwards, and this guy just stood up, and in a moment of transparency, he said, "Coach, you've laid out all these best practices, these 6 best practices that I did. I don't know if you saw that or not, but I'm sure they check, you check all those boxes, right?" But he said the place that I struggle is I realized that I was not balancing my life well, and now I'm erring on the side of spending more time with my family, but now my business is suffering. And so what I asked him to do, like, this was not an easy answer. I said, "Okay, tell you what, I think I'm an ambassador for Boot Campaign, and what our veterans do is always on my heart." And I said, "I tell you what, if you'll go to the website bootcampaign.org, buy a pair of boots, then give me your business card. I'll spend an hour with you, and we'll look at that together, because there is a balance, right? There is a balance. You don't have to be completely out of whack on both sides, but there's also a price." And I suspect you would say the same thing. Like, those moments then you decide to be home for dinner, you could have been sitting down with a borrower. You could have been training a loan officer. You could have been doing something else, but you've opted to choose time with your family. So I love that, man. It's a great example. But how about in your younger life? Like, I know in one of your promo videos, I think on the website, you talk about how this was an area that you focused on in sports, right? So were you always focused on being all in sports? And if so, which sports?
Yeah, at the time when I played everything. I was a big basketball player, football. I ran track. I ended up running track in college. So sports was a big part of my life growing up, and I've always wanted to make people proud, right? I wanted to make my parents proud, wanted to make my teammates proud, and it was always a big part of kind of why I strive to do what I do. And I always wanted to be proud of myself, and that transitioned into business pretty seamlessly. And now we're really striving to make our clients proud, right? And to make them proud of the people they've chosen to work with when it comes to their real estate and financial relationship moving forward. And that's something that we are very much all in on now.
So cool, man. So you mentioned something to me before we started to record, because I was kind of complimenting you on this, and he said, "Well, I haven't always been that way. Like, this is a learned behavior." So as I speak now to Ryan Grant, the loan originator and mortgage planner, and we should probably, for people that don't know you, I'm going to ask you to finish that. I'll finish the question. You can answer it in a minute, but let's just lay out some groundwork for them so that they have some idea. Look, 2019 has been a crazy year for everybody, but why don't you give us maybe September, October production? What do you think you're looking at for the end of the year in terms of units and volume, just for framing that up a bit?
Sure. Yeah. So I personally did 50 loans last month, 52 the month before, and about 47 the month prior to that. We'll probably finish the year at about $180 million in closed volume and somewhere near 450 families served.
Yeah. Phenomenal.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. I mean, phenomenal. I don't know for sure what average loan originator production is. I don't know what it is this year. It's got to be a little higher. But, historically, I think most people would probably say 3 to 6 units a month is probably fairly standard for most loan
About
originators.
3.2
So,
is the average.
yeah. So to be averaging, 40 to 50 is exemplary. And to be doing this in Orange County, California is amazing, right? It's amazing. So I really want people to hear that I think sometimes when we're listening to someone talk about their process and what they've learned and so forth, if I have the context of accomplishment, right? Like, if I can listen to JJ Watt talk to me about playing football versus, a kid who's playing high school ball out here in Moore Park, it's like, well, I'd probably listen a little differently to JJ. And
Right.
I think I got JJ Watt here right now. So coming back to where I was headed, I guess it's just when you got into the business, and we don't have time to go through all of that, but when you got into the business, I guess what I'm looking for, was there a moment in time, Ryan, where you just said, wow, I could get on the treadmill like everybody else, or I can listen to this thing that I'm feeling in my heart or hearing in my head or I'm seeing in borrowers? And was there a moment in time that there was a shift for you?
Yeah, very much so. So when I started in 2011, I was really just like everybody else, right? I didn't know any real estate agents, didn't have a database. I just had a business card and kind of went to work.
Yep.
And I really had no distinct value proposition. I had no differentiating quality. I just did what most loan officers do and try and create good relationships and try and earn business.
Yeah.
And then over
Yeah.
time, I started realizing, I kept thinking more and more, what can we do to differentiate ourselves? Well, how can we be different? How can we be unique? How can we be more valuable? And then I started realizing, I don't think anybody cares about that. What I
Right.
think we really need to think is, what does the consumer need, right? What does the client need? What would the client perceive as valuable?
Mm,
And how can we actually move the needle? Because in our world, we see a lot of families that struggle to buy just the median home, right? I
sure.
mean, in Orange County, I think we're $835,000 is the median home price now.
Wow.
And so it takes a pretty significant level of income to qualify for that. So we not only do we have highly competitive market with, I think we have 6 lenders just in my building.
Wow.
So we need to stand out from a unique and valuable perspective. But
Mm,
what does the consumer need? Right? And
yep.
what do they need now? And what do they need later? Right? And when we really got clear on that, that's when this whole thing came together. And that's kind of where our whole path changed direction. And we started thinking,
So
okay,
cool.
let's stop talking about us and let's start talking about them and let's start thinking
So
about
cool.
them differently.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So if you were going to, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, but I'm sure that you're good with it. If you were going to articulate your unique value proposition now as it has evolved, how would you describe that for the Ryan Grant team?
Yeah, so we tell every client we have a very distinct value proposition in the sense that where most lenders are interested in selling you debt and helping you for 30 days with a transaction, we're more interested in helping you for 30 plus years to increase your wealth, to proactively plan for your real estate future, to set goals, and we're going to be the most valuable person in your life when it comes to real estate or finance moving forward.
Okay, so you've said that very matter of factly because you've said it many times, but I'm just going to come up with a dude. That is so strong. That is so powerful. That is such an enormous differentiator. For years before I dealt in the mortgage industry, I was in the real estate industry. And, back then I think homes were selling, people were selling a home every 5 to 7 years. I think it's moved to 10 since
Yeah.
the crash. And so you think from a real estate agent's perspective that, okay, so this person's going to need me every 10 years. Well, how much attention am I going to pay to that person, right? And
Yeah.
so it's the wrong mindset, but it is one mindset, right? To say, so what that means is then I need to have this constant flow of leads from Zillow or something, and it creates this odd, I don't know, man. It takes you out of the orbit of relationships and puts you into this transactional place, which is just a horrible losing game. So I love that you're doing that. You're doing it at an amazing pace, Ryan, you and your team. And describe your team a little bit. I think it would be important for people to know, like, how many players have you got? Who does what? Talk to us about your team.
Yeah, so my team right now is comprised of, we have 3 mortgage advisors, along with myself, and our job is to meet with every client, have the dreams and goals call, have the consultations with the clients. And then we have, they each have some production partners that help them with their day-to-day tasks. Then we have a post-closing manager, which is a really unique role. Most people think post-closing in terms of like selling loans.
Right.
In our world, post-closing is our ability to pull through on the commitment that we made to the consumer. So we call the client every year, we do our annual financial reviews, we put them in touch with our CPAs, financial planners, estate planning attorneys. So that role has been a huge key
Yeah.
to our ability to be able to do what you just said, which is not have a competing intention. And most
Totally.
people have a competing intention between new business and past clients. So they
Right.
operate like a lawnmower without a bag, and things just kind of fly out the back. And that is not a world we want to live in. We want our clients to know that, there's a reason why I spend 30 minutes on the phone with every single client
Yep.
after the transaction closes.
Yep.
People say, oh, because I ask every loan officer, I ask real estate agents, what's your closing call with the client like? And typically it's like, hey, congratulations, we're happy for you. Let us know if you need anything, call us in the future. Click.
Yep. Yep. You're
And
right.
at that point is the biggest disconnect, right? Because once we've got the person into their largest asset they've ever owned, and now they have the largest debt they've ever encumbered, now they need us more than ever,
Totally.
because there's so much more they need to know. There's so much more they need to do. Their life will inevitably change and evolve. And if I don't make it very clear on that post-closing phone call what our relationship will be for the next 30 plus years, then they'll think every time we call it's a sales call, because no one has ever called them in their life and just given them advice and guidance and help and not sold them something.
Yeah, man. I love that. I love that more than you know. And look, you may have used that line a million times, but it's the first time I've heard lawnmower without a bag. and,
Yeah.
and I will be using it and giving you credit for it, because that's a model, right? I can't tell you how many people I've coached who worked in a consumer direct call center kind of environment, and then at some point they realized, oh, I could get into a retail environment where I could build a quote unquote book of business. But up until
Right.
then, they were totally using a manual lawnmower without a bag. They were just grass was just flying all over the place and
Right.
then dying. It turns brown, by the way. Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay, so let's go to now the next level of that, because you believed in that post-closing structure so strongly that you've now created the brand new program called the Art of Homeownership. And those are words I've officially never heard strung together before. So I'd love to hear you describe that a little bit.
Yeah. So the Art of Homeownership platform was derived around the fact that there is an art to being a homeowner, right? There's an art to approaching homeownership, to
Yep.
figuring out if you should be a homeowner. And then there's an art to, once you own it or once you own multiple properties, how to become the most, you know, the highest and best homeowner that you possibly can be, right? We
Mm-hmm.
call it mastering the art of homeownership.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've kind of developed a platform that has 5 very unique products that we offer to every single person who wants to own a home and every single person who currently owns a home, right? So there's a home concierge service, and our commitment to them is that we're going to help them actively maintain the home at a high level, increase that home's value over time, and really be a smarter homeowner and not react to the home as it happens. Because
Mm.
a home can very much be a liability. You talk to
Sure.
many economists, and most people, they'll say, look, rental properties, those are assets, whereas your primary residence is a liability. So if you let the liability continue to pile up by
Mm.
having to fix things all the time, it can become problematic, and most people have no clue what to do there, right? So our concierge service, someone will go to their home, they'll do a 300-point data analysis of the property, they send them information every week, and it's a really great tool for the homeowner to think at a higher level about how to increase that home's value.
Mm.
Next is they get a monthly real estate wealth digest every month, because most people have no clue what their home is worth, much
Mm-hmm.
less what it's worth to them, right?
What
So
did you call it, Ryan? Monthly what?
a real estate wealth digest,
Perfect.
and it's
Love it.
unique to them. We actually
Yep.
have over a 100% open rate from our clients. So it
Wow.
means everybody opens it, and some people open it
And
multiple
shares
times.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Way cool. Yeah.
And there they get to see not only their net worth through real estate, but all the financial analytics that they should be thinking through.
Mm.
Should they pay their home down faster? Would it make sense to refinance? Should they move up, move down, buy investment properties? Because we make a really unnerving assumption in our world, right? We
Mm.
assume that when the consumer buys the home, they have all the knowledge necessary to know what to do from there moving forward, and they don't. And the
Yep.
reason why is because, where would you learn it? Have you ever
Right.
learned anything in school about real estate or finance, or have they ever taught any classes after that? Is there any public courses that you can go to? So the consumer needs help in a multitude of areas. And then we get into our annual financial review, right? Where every year we call and we do an in-depth analysis of what's happening in their life, what's changing, what's evolving, what goals are we setting, we're planning for the future. And in our world, if anyone calls it, if one of our past clients calls us and they say, I want to buy a home, I want to refinance, I want to buy an investment property, I want to sell, we feel personally at fault for
Mm.
not helping them make that decision and having them make it on their own.
Mm.
And that's a big thing for us, right? Because when, in our world, we always think we need to get to the consumer first, right? So when
Yep.
they decide to buy, sell, or finance real estate, we need to be in front of them. I
Right.
think that's wrong. I think that there's 99% of America doesn't know how to decide to buy, sell, or finance real estate. We need to
Totally.
be in front of them. So our
Yep.
job with the Art of Homeownership is to adopt those 99% and say, look, here's how you can buy, sell, or finance real estate. We'll walk you through it. It doesn't cost you anything. There's no commitment. If you end up doing it, we'd be more than happy to help you. And if you don't, at least you're confident in whatever decision you're making. And I think that if you ask most Americans, their level of confidence in their real estate and financial world is at an all-time low.
Totally. Yeah, man, I love that. And so concierge, the monthly real estate investment digest, and the annual financial review. Are those the
Yeah.
three pillars?
Then there's five. There's another one, which is our perfect mortgage promise, which is our commitment to the consumer that they're always going to be in the right position in their real estate. We have a slide in the Art of Homeownership that shows them all the questions that they should be asking themselves. And there's about 17 or 18 questions. And when you show a client that question, what's one of my favorite things to do in a consultation is show a client, Mr. Smith, did you know you're going to have all these questions after you buy this home? And he's going to go, no. I said, and did you know that even if you did ask yourself those questions, would you feel comfortable and confident answering them yourself?
Mm.
No. So
Yeah.
you can see why a relationship with a mortgage professional who's proactive in nature and has a system and a platform that's derived to help you work through these things is so beneficial for you and your family, correct? Yes, this makes sense.
So good, man. So
And then
good.
lastly is helping people maximize wealth through real estate, because I think that a lot of times people just kind of buy a home, they live in it, and they pay for it.
Yep.
And we're going to hit a pretty substantial retirement crisis in America over the next 10 years.
Mm.
The average 65-year-old has about $59,000 in retirement savings currently. And obviously that's not going to be enough to get them through and life. So not only will they struggle with housing, but they're going to struggle financially in general. So children are going to have to figure out what to do with parents. Parents are going to have to figure out what to do with children. So helping people maximize wealth through real estate has to do with accessory dwelling units, garage conversions, granny flats, casitas, helping them get the most out of the real estate they own, and then helping people who have investment properties be able to increase their investments and increase their returns by building more space to have more families live in their area. So we kind of look at all five of those sectors for every single client, and we do it for 30 plus years, so the client never has to worry about it.
So my head goes all kinds of places as I process this, just because I don't want to be overly dramatic, but my belief, Ryan, is that you have landed on something that is really enormous. And so I think your issue, because now I'm talking to you as a coach, right? Your issue moving forward will be the scalability of this. But assuming that you have looked at that and you are able to scale this, I really think this is something that is enormously valuable to the whole country. It's just not done, right? It's like what we start to see. Well, look, as we're recording this, I live in Ventura County, California. You're further south. You don't have the fire issues that we've got going in Northern California and in my neighborhood right now, not immediate neighborhood, but
Sure.
like, I don't know if you know Penny Dubeck, you probably do.
Yep.
She's up north near Monterey, Salinas area, and she's been without power for 5 days. Well, how does that happen? How are you without power for 5 days? It's because last year, PG&E had not maintained the lines properly, right, in this area called Paradise, ironically. All those homes burned down. The town was wiped out. 80 people died. So now our governor says, I'm going to hold you responsible, power companies. So what do the power companies do? They just shut everything down because now they've got a liability issue, right? They've got it. Well, now you've got homeowners looking around going, what? Like, our state's just shutting arbitrarily power down because they're worried that there's going to be. So anyway, I look at things like that, and I look at things like student debt right now. We talked about this, a bit before, and it's become such a huge issue
Yes.
where these young people who now have bachelor's degrees, but they got 100, 200, 3,000, $300,000 in debt, sometimes a house,
Right.
depending on where they live, that's got to be dealt with, right? Like, I mean, that's got to be dealt with. I've got a granddaughter right now that's got a degree in clinical psychology, about $300,000 from Palo Alto University. But what she's figured out is that loan is forgiven if she works for the federal government for 10 years, which is what she's doing through, somehow it works through Children's Hospital. She's
Oh, okay.
doing pediatric care there. So thankfully, like, that's being forgiven. But I think you and I would look at that as businessmen and go, I'm not 100% sure that's a viable long-term
No,
strategy, right?
no.
So what you're doing is bringing, I feel like, that lens, Ryan, to something that people have not been paying attention to. I just think of my own life, like I was supposed to buy a house, and so at some point I did, and I did so with 3.5% down, and because that was the easiest way to do it. But
Right.
nobody sat down with me and
No.
said, let's look at a 30-year run around this, so that when I
Right.
arrived at this point in my life, maybe I would have been at a different place than
Right.
I am now. So what I'm saying is, man, I feel like you're at this cool place of being kind of an evangelist about logic around home ownership, and I'm really fired up for you. Like,
Thank you.
really fired up for you.
Yeah, we're excited. We know that there's a huge need for it, right? And you're right. There, from a scalability perspective, people that do this, I think our biggest issue may not be scalability at first. It may just be getting the consumer to understand that this exists,
Yeah,
right? Because we've become so accustomed to anytime someone calls to think someone's going to ask something of me or sell something to me.
yep,
But definitely nobody's going to help me unless there's something in it for them. And
yep,
look, I'd be lying if I say that this wasn't also a business strategy for us, right?
sure,
Because my goal is that I know everything about all the clients that are in our Art of Homeownership network. So when they do decide to buy, sell, or finance real estate, and when we help
totally,
them understand it's a good time, we've obviously earned that business.
totally,
And they refer us to their friends, their family, their coworkers. And so we can grow really organically. We don't need to worry about new leads, right? And
nice,
we can let the consumer know there's a place you can go to get information, right? Because where, like you saying, you didn't know where to go back when you bought your first home.
no idea,
Would you have called a realtor? Probably not, because you expect them to sell you something, right?
sure,
You wouldn't have called a mortgage company because until you've decided to get a mortgage, they're not going to help you. They just give you a mortgage when you need one,
absolutely,
right? And the mortgage industry has unfortunately devolved into commoditized order takers,
totally,
right? Someone calls, I mean, I did a survey, which is part of the reason why we really dove hard into this, because I called 5 different mortgage companies.
mm,
Some were online lenders, some were banks, some were, similar type correspondent mortgage banks. And I would just kind of secret shopper at all of them. And I gave
mm-hmm.
them all different information. Like, one, I wanted to go from a 30 to a 15 year. One, I wanted to go from 15 to 30. One, I wanted to buy an investment property. And to the 5, all of them said, great, we'd be happy to help. Let's start with your application.
Right,
Not a single question.
right,
Not like, great, let's talk about this. Let's figure out if that makes sense. Let's go through this. Like, the book, The Challenger Sale, like showing someone something they don't know, imparting wisdom upon
absolutely,
them that they don't have.
yep.
And that's just not in our world anymore. So I think as mortgage professionals, not only if we want to survive, but if we want to thrive, we have to change the way that we look at our relationship with the consumer.
Well, and it's also the ultimate differentiator with the Quickens of the world, right? Where there's a machine built around, I don't know what those guys earn, but it's a fraction of what a traditional loan originator would earn. And I do know there's a point system for the amount of time you're not on the phone, right? So in other words, they measure it so you're tied to leads coming in and conversion rates and so forth. If you're looking to differentiate, this is the way to differentiate, because you're putting a bag on that lawnmower and you're going deeper. The closest to this, Ryan, is, for years, I think that I interviewed top producing realtors that do 150 units a year average. And
Yeah.
I interviewed a woman in Austin, Texas, probably 8 years ago. And she said, well, I do an annual real estate review. And I'm like, ding, 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 ding. First time I've heard of this. Like, tell me about that. And she said, well, I tell people at closing, I'm going to come out a year from now at the anniversary of you owning the home, and I'm going to come out with a clipboard and a camera, right before it was the phone.
Right.
And I'm going to just sort of look at, like, how are you doing? Is there any deferred maintenance, or there's some things that we should look at? Should we consider your mortgage? It was a very, very, very rough version of what you've now orchestrated with these 5 points, right?
Yeah.
So, dude, I'm really fired up for you. And so here's what I want people to know: if they're in the mortgage industry or the real estate industry, I
Yeah.
think, right?
Yep. It's for
So
both.
what would you encourage? What's the next step that they could take?
Yeah, I think that if you're a mortgage professional or a real estate professional and you really want to not just scrape by and make it for the next 5 to 10 years, and you want to thrive and you want to be the most valuable person in your clients' lives, you can sign up for the platform, right? So
Mm,
you can go to artofhomeownership.com. You can learn more about it. You can click on, realtor, real estate professional, or mortgage professional. We have webinars every week coming up, and so when you sign up, we'll invite you to one of the webinars so you can learn more about it. But ultimately, our mission is that the consumer is upset, right? We want to upset the
right,
consumer. We want
right,
the consumer to think, look, someone sold you a massive asset and someone sold you a large debt. And then they both just said, good luck, Bill. Hope you know what you're doing, right?
right.
And they marketed to you. So
Yep.
hopefully when you need something, you reach back out to them, but they haven't provided value to you in a way that you deserve, in a way that you need moving forward. So
Yeah.
my goal is that every consumer now strives to work with an Art of Homeownership certified professional, because we will make the commitment to them that we're going to help them and their family in a very encouraging way over 30 years. And so by signing up, you'll have the ability to offer that same level of value. You'll have that differentiator in your business. And I promise you, you'll just sleep better at night, right? Because, you know, even though we don't think what we're doing is wrong, because
Mm,
we all do it the same. Every mortgage company does the same. Every real estate company does the same. When we really think about what we're doing, right? It's like if you Bill, if you're a financial advisor and you give me $500,000 today, and you call me a year from now and you say, "How's my money doing?" I say, "I don't know, Bill. I haven't looked at it."
right,
You
right.
probably feel bad. You would feel bad, and I would feel bad. We're not doing anything so dissimilar, right? And the worst part about it is that real estate is actually much more emotional than an
Oh,
investment platform.
completely. Sure. My kids
So
wake up here on Christmas morning. I mean, right?
um,
Give me a break. They're playing in the backyard. I love that, man. And I love not only value, you're right, you are providing value, but I think you're even doing something, I would argue more than that in with the word context. You're providing context to my home ownership, the decisions and choices that I make around it. So I have a bigger place to put that, which is what I want to do. I mean, I think of that with a medical professional. I met the dermatologist yesterday, right? I want to
yeah,
know context for this. Like, I have a bump on my arm. Well, okay, I'll cut it off. Well,
right,
how about if we talk about, like, what does that mean? Well,
right,
it's potentially basal cell carcinoma, so that's not going to kill you, but we should be aware of it. So I want to call you next week, and I know that I go in there every 6 months because, Ryan, I maintain my body,
yeah.
right? I maintain my body because I have context around it, that this is the only vehicle I have to move around through life in. Arguably, you're doing the same thing with home ownership. So yeah, dude, I'm really excited about this and look forward to tracking with you on this. I have a timely question for you. So
Yeah,
as you're speaking to homeowners now through this lens of a 30-year relationship,
yeah,
how do you help people, particularly young people who saw their parents get hammered in '08? How do you help them have context for the recessionary talk that is on the horizon in relation to real estate right now? I'm just curious about your reaction, particularly to 20 and 30-year-olds. What are you telling them?
yeah. So we use a lot of story selling in our world, right? And so I tell my personal story there a lot, right? And I say, look, because I bought a home in August of 2006, which was, for those of you who know, not a great time.
Right.
I put 20% down, and 3 years later, my home was worth, $300,000 less than I paid for it 3 years ago. I was massively underwater, and I was freaking out. And so I called my dad, and my dad just said, would if rent would be, noticeably cheaper. Would that make sense? I go, no, it wouldn't be that much cheaper. Okay, well, what if are you getting a tax benefit? Yeah, I'm getting a tax benefit. Every time you pay the mortgage, are you, paying down your principal? Yes, it's not an interest-only loan. Is it going to adjust? No, it's the same payment. Is the payment comfortable? Yeah, I can deal with it. Great, keep the house. And I was like, that's it, Dad? No magic bullet, nothing,
Yep.
nothing to get me out of this hole. And now I still own the home, and I have about $400,000 less in personal wealth if I didn't buy a home at the second worst time since the history of the Great Depression.
Wow.
And so it's
Yeah.
not about, we don't look at the national economy. We don't even look at the local economy. We look at that individual's personal economy, right? And we say, look, if you do this, these are going to be your outs. These are going to be your risks. These are going to be the things that we want to keep an eye on. And we just allow them to make a decision. And that's one of my favorite things that we do is we don't sell anything. We simply meet with a client and we remove the outcome from the conversation. And we just say, let me learn about you. Let me give you some advice. And then at the end of the meeting, you will either confidently decide to buy a home or you'll confidently decide not to, with a plan and a strategy and a timeline to accomplish it at
So
some
good.
point.
So good. We don't sell them anything. We allow them to make a decision.
Yeah. And again, most people deserve to be confident in their decision, but no one knows how to get that level of confidence.
Right. Yeah, Ryan. And so you got in the business in 11, is that right?
So that was when I started kind of originating,
Yeah.
relationship-based originating. Prior to that,
Yeah.
I was in call centers, and that was kind of like my
Okay. So you know that
dating
world.
years for the
Yeah.
business. Yes.
Yeah. You had the lawnmower, but no bag.
Yes.
Yeah, man. Well, let's call it 10 years then. I mean, if you've been in the business 10 years, for you to see so clearly what a need is for an enormous market segment. I mean, I just don't want to over dramatize it, but I see if the issue right now is getting the word out, I'm glad that I can help get the word out. But I want to challenge anybody who's listening to this or who is watching this right now on YouTube to say, who do I know who can help get this word out? Can I get this guy on a local news channel? Is there somebody that knows someone with another podcast, a bigger podcast, a YouTube channel, someplace where this word can be shared? Because what I believe is, look, I get that of course you have a business interest in this. I mean, otherwise it's a charity, and charities are cool. Like,
Sure.
that'd be awesome if that was it. But I 100% understand we live in America. This is a capitalistic society. You've created a greater solution than anything that exists right now. And so I'm saying Ryan Grant's an evangelist. Let's get this guy a platform. So if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, and there's some place that you think Ryan needs to tell this story, virtually or physically, reach out to Ryan Grant. What's the best way to track you down, man?
Yeah, you can email me at ryan@ryangrantteam.com. You can also email ryan@artofhomeownership.com. You can go to artofhomeownership.com, which is our website, to learn more about it. But I just, the same way that, and Bill, let me first by saying thank you for those kind words.
Yeah, man, my pleasure.
Even though it is a business, I think it's a necessity. And I think that as this wealth gap continues and the divide grows, the division between the haves and have-nots is going to become more and more problematic from a societal perspective. And
absolutely,
although I don't think this is going to completely solve that, I think it will help significantly, because it will help people understand that there's a better future for them in real estate or finance.
Totally.
A future they can have a plan with, a future
Totally.
that they can build towards. And that's something that the consumer is not aware of. So we have an uphill battle, right? Because we're the only people talking about it in the mortgage space and the real estate space. So
Yep.
the client for the last 70 to 100 years has experienced nothing even remotely close to this. And so it's going to be an uphill climb for them to start realizing that this exists and that they should participate in this. And it's not a sales pitch, right? It's just something that, we are going to help them with. And should they need something in the future, we'll be available to help them at that time.
Yeah, man. Well, to the degree that I can be your Tom Selleck talking about reverse, I'm happy to be that, because I believe it. I'm telling you, as a guy I'm 64 years old right now, I did not have this advantage anywhere in my real estate experience, right? I've had to assemble what I have over time, having been in the industry, of course, and making better decisions and choices. But man, I'm telling you, if this isn't a burden, then I don't know what it is, and I'm excited for you. So, Ryan, it's been a pleasure to hang out with you today, man. I look forward to an opportunity to share a cup of coffee with you at some point in the future. We're not that far apart,
No.
but yeah, man, really excited about what you're doing. I guess in closing, I'm going to say this: I've coached people in the mortgage space long enough to know that there will be a complete segment of that market that says, oh my goodness, if I could find a way to get certified to take that approach to this business instead of competing with the Chases and the B of A's and the Wells, and if you transfer 100,000 over here, we can give you a better rate. If I can
Right.
get off that game and start building relationships with people over time and help them to manage their assets and their financial future, that's something I would sign up for, because that I would feel better about that. I would wake up in the morning being excited about the fact that I have people I can connect with, that I can do a much better job of helping them to enjoy their better future, which is exactly the way that I'm wired, by the way, in coaching. If you ask me, like, what's the thing that fires you up about coaching? It is not tactics or skill and execution. That's not it. It used to
Sure.
be that 17 years ago. Now, Ryan, it's about things like what you've landed on. It's about encouraging clients to dream big and decide what's possible. What could I do? The fact that you've landed on something like this is a story I'm going to tell, because it's a great example. Like, look at what's possible. Look what Ryan has done. So keep dreaming big, my friend. I look forward to staying in touch with you, and keep us posted on what you're doing.
I will. Thank you, Bill. And for everyone watching, you know, if you do decide to do this, or if you know someone who wants to help with it, it is the epitome of going all in. And if you don't accompany or embody this in this or in any other aspect of your life, I highly encourage watching Bill's podcast. Share the podcast with other people. It's helped me tremendously since I've been watching it. I know it helps a lot of other people as well. So share Bill's podcast, because there's not a lot of people talking about all in right now. I think that from a business perspective, from a life perspective, mindfulness, everything, it's a really encouraging messaging to share. So thank you for sharing it, Bill.
Appreciate the kind words, my friend. Thanks, brother.
Right. Talk soon.
See you, man.